We were celebrating my sister's birthday at an upscale restaurant in downtown Chicago, the kind of place where everything sparkled. The walls, the glasses, even the people pretending their lives were flawless. Everyone had shown up dressed to impress. Suits, glittering dresses, high heels. It looked more like a boutique wedding reception than a dinner. The atmosphere was loud and buzzing with jokes, stories, and the constant refill of wine. Daniel, my husband, sat beside me, the calmest presence at a table full of performers. He had that quiet confidence that never asked for attention. He sat with good posture, spoke only when it made sense, smiled politely, and let everyone else battle for the spotlight. Compared to my sister's dramatic friends, he almost faded into the background. And something in me, something childish and insecure, wanted to pull him out of that calmness, to poke at him until he reacted. I can't even explain why. Maybe I wanted him to seem more like the bold, loud guys these kinds of dinners always praise. I had no idea how badly I would regret trying. Things went downhill the moment the conversation shifted to romantic gestures. One of my sister's newly engaged friends started bragging about her fiancé like he was carved out of a fairy tale. Monthly trips, surprise dates, love letters, flowers at her office. The whole storybook spread. The other couples jumped in, laughing while comparing their own romantic moments. Someone asked her who she thought was the most romantic man at the table. She screamed her fiancé's name so loud the entire table clapped. And then, someone turned to me and asked jokingly, "So, how's your husband doing at keeping you happy?" It was obviously meant as a harmless question. I could have easily said something sweet and moved on. Instead, I chose the worst possible response. I lifted my wine glass, smirked, and announced, loud enough for the entire table, "Honestly, I think I need a new husband." People laughed, but it wasn't real laughter. It was the tight, uncomfortable kind that says, should we be laughing at this? I felt the shift instantly, but instead of fixing it, I made it 10 times worse. I nudged Daniel's shoulder and added, "Seriously, if anyone knows a guy who listens and has initiative, send him my way." My sister's face dropped. Her fiancé looked down at his plate. One of her friends bit her lip. And Daniel, he stared at me with a coldness I had never seen before. Not anger, not hurt, just emptiness. A silence so heavy it chilled me. He set down his fork slowly. Too slowly. It wasn't hesitation. It was the calm of someone who had just emotionally checked out. He wiped his fingers with a napkin, placed it neatly next to his plate, and when he finally spoke, his voice was soft but sharp enough to cut through the table. "Well," he said, "if you're accepting applicants, I'll go ahead and vacate the position tonight." The room seemed to go silent all at once. Not just our table. Asterisk everything star. The music faded, conversations paused. Even the clinking of dishes seemed to stop. But he wasn't finished. He leaned back slightly, eyes locked on me, and said, "You joke about needing a new husband, but maybe you should ask yourself why your husband stopped trying in the first place." Someone across the table let out a quiet gasp. My heart slammed inside my chest. His voice stayed calm, but his words were merciless. "You've spent so much time making jokes at my expense, turning every flaw into entertainment, that you forgot people eventually stop wanting to play along. If disrespect is your idea of humor, then it makes sense you're searching for replacements. You don't appreciate what you have." I tried to say something, anything. "Daniel, I was just..." He lifted a hand, stopping me instantly. "No. You weren't joking. Not enough to stop yourself from saying it in front of a table full of people." He took a sip of water, his composure terrifying in its steadiness. "You've embarrassed me before," he said, "but tonight you embarrassed yourself far more than you realize." My sister looked like she'd seen a ghost. Her friend whispered, "Oh my God." Even the waiter who stepped toward us froze, then backed away like he walked into something he shouldn't have. And I just sat there, feeling my face go hot and cold at the same time. In all the years I'd known Daniel, I had never seen him like that. He wasn't angry. He was finished. He stood up, not abruptly, not dramatically. He just adjusted his jacket, placed his napkin beside his plate, and looked at me with a finality that made my stomach twist. You want a new husband, he said quietly. Good. After tonight, you won't have to pretend anymore. My throat tightened. Daniel, please. He didn't even fully turn toward me. That's the issue, he said. You only say please when the damage is already done. Then he walked out. No yelling, no slammed doors, just a quiet departure that hurt more than any outburst ever could. The table stayed frozen for nearly a minute. My sister stared at me in disbelief. Her fiancé murmured, he meant every word of that. Someone else whispered, why would you say something like that to him? I sank into my seat, burning with humiliation and regret as the weight of what I had done finally hit me. I had ridiculed the man who had always been good to me. I had turned him into a punchline, and he finally refused to be one. The restaurant noise eventually returned, but the shame stayed, pressing down on me with every breath. Daniel's cold, steady words weren't just a comeback. They weren't just a bad moment at a dinner. They were the moment everything broke, and I had no one to blame but myself.